Dr. Williams. It's me, Megan, and this is my journal of the week. I decided to do a PowerPoint. I'm not really sure exactly how you prefer to receive the journals, but I always try to be as creative as possible. And I'm going to start my little show. And what you basically asked was, what have I learned this week, and what have I taken from the discussions in the class readings? First of all, we talked about the critical thinking in the lessons that we teach in our classroom. And one thing that I have absorbed is the fact that it's not just solving a complex problem. Say, third grade, they're getting into the multi-step word problems, and they're starting to read more difficult stories and chapter books, and and it's working through those steps on the parts of the story and the climax of a story, and what happens at the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the think, pair, share sort of concept, or a turn and talk, and predictions, inferences, and whatnot. But then you think deeper into the critical thinking, and it also can be these skills that can be applied to everyday life to help a child grow into a fully functioning adult, where they'll be able to, through the critical thinking that you teach in your class, they'll be able to get through maybe a difficult process sometime in their young adult life or even their adult life, just because of the skills that you've learned or they have learned in your class. Also, in discussion 2, we went over like other tools that we can use to talk about a text even deeper, how we can guide a student through it. What about the small groups that we put together, um, you know peer reflections, all of these different things whenever working with the small groups, going over the different parts of the book. And I had specifically mentioned nonfiction because a lot of kids have like difficult times with the concept. It's easy with fiction because we know it's a made up story. But when you go to nonfiction, you're talking about true stuff. And there's all these components that go into nonfiction, such as you start with the table of contents and teaching them how do they use that, and then going through the text itself and all the facts that are in the book. And then there's certain key words in the book that lead to the vocabulary and the word knowledge that the child gains, and then you're going to teach them about the glossary and how they can look up the word in the back. Then you get to the index. It's not just the word that they're looking for, but the subject. And you're going to teach the child, you can look for this specific subject within the book and find exactly what page it's on and go to it. So it's all these parts. Not to also mention the word non-fiction. It's got the word non. Well, when we go to fiction, it means not true. So a lot of our students get it mixed up. They'll think because non-fiction and not true may mean the same thing, so they will confuse it. I've had many students do that. We had to go into many creative ways on how to reverse that thought. Mainly the anchor charts, a lot of memorization. One thing that I'll ask of you is if you've ever taught nonfiction in a very creative way to help children remember nonfiction as being true without having to just memorize it the way that it is, to have a visual to remind them, please let me know. But I went into my website that I love to go to called Reading Rockets, and a lot of their advice on how to teach the nonfiction, it didn't really go over when the kids get it confused. Only just the components of it and how to teach it. So any of that advice would be great. But also the tools of what it takes to guide those students in the right direction. When you're taking your lower group and you're intervening on the things that they don't understand, you're progress monitoring them more than your on level or above level kids, then you're coming up with these creative ways of like, how can I get through to my child as far as knowing them and how they learn, and how can you make